Hey, what's up? It's Sep from Unison and welcome to the Unison Bass Dragon preview video. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you my 9 best tricks for instantly making your bass lines and 808s sound better. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of the upcoming Unison Bass Dragon. So in a moment, I'm going to jump inside my computer and I'm going to show you all these tips in action. We're going to go through some tips that have to do with the structure and the notes, and also some technical tips such as using effects and automation, and just my 9 best tips for improving your bass lines and 808s instantly that I've learned over my 10 years of producing. And let's get the credentials out of the way real quick so you know this is going to be worth your time and sticking around till the end of this video. So basically, my name's Sep. I've been producing for the last 10 years. I started when I was 18 years old. I decided not to go to college at the very last minute so I could pursue my passion of music production. I started off in Vancouver, Canada. I went to the Art Institute of Vancouver. Didn't learn much there, so I packed all my stuff into my car and drove to LA, where I spent the next 3 years. And over there, I went to the Musicians Institute in Hollywood, a bunch of other schools like Dubspot and Garnish, and I met Grammy-winning producer Daryl Swan, who ended up becoming my mentor, and I learned a lot of what I know and what I'm going to share with you in this video from him. Now, at the beginning of my music production career, things were not going well. I mean, my first track took me 6 months to finish. Like, I was just working on this one track 8 hours a day for 6 months because I'm kind of a perfectionist, which is good for our products at Unison, but back in the day, when I couldn't produce at that professional level, it absolutely drove me crazy. And after 6 months, when I finally felt it was good, it actually wasn't very good. I released it and I sent it to all my friends, all my family, messaged all of them on Facebook, and it got 50 plays. So that was pretty depressing to say the least, but I kept at it, released more and more tracks. I eventually released a remix that got featured on Trap City and got 20 million plays. That was my first big breakthrough. But my first original track that got over 1 million plays was Come a Little Closer. And what people liked most about that track was the bass line. So, that goes to show that if you have a really good bass line or 808 pattern in your track, it's going to be set up for success. And basically, after I released that track, I went on to DJ all my favorite clubs in LA, like Avalon, Exchange. And then I ended up starting Unison. And that's been my main focus for the last 5 years, developing game-changing tools and products to make music production faster and easier, while eliminating all the frustration, guesswork, and overwhelm that I had to go through when I was coming up as a producer. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Let me walk you through these 9 tricks to instantly make your bass lines and 808s sound better. So, hopefully you can land some hits as well, and you can achieve the success you want as a music producer. So let's jump inside my computer and get straight into it. All right, so let's get into the training. So there's 9 tricks that are instantly gonna make your bass lines and 808s sound better. And I got a few example beats here that we're gonna use the tricks on, so I can, hands-on show you how to implement them. And some of them make sense to group together, so we're gonna do that, but let's get started. So first I will play this beat with no tricks applied. So it sounds pretty good, but as you can see, especially near the end, the 808 pattern gets a bit repetitive. So we're going to use the first trick here, which is using glides. So this is very easy to do. All you got to do is go into whatever sampler or synth you're using, find the glide parameter, turn it on, and set the time to something, like between 80 and 150. I'm going to go with 150 here. And for it to work, what you have to do is the notes that you want it to glide on, you got to slightly overlap. So as you can see, normally if you plug in notes in the piano roll, it would be like this, but if you stretch it, that's when it'll glide to the next one. And we can hear the difference now over here. So that adds a little bit more interest to your bass. And we're going to combine this trick with trick number 2, which is adding last bar variation. So as you can see, this 808 pattern repeats the exact notes 4 times, but what we're going to do is add variation on the very last bar, because for a hit bass pattern, you want it to be kind of simple and repeatable so that people can follow along, but you want to add a little bit of variation to recapture their attention and make it not stale. So what we're gonna do here is go into the last bar and add some variation. So let's go in the piano roll here and check it out. So what we're gonna do is the very last bar, we're gonna cut this in half so that we have room to add the variation. Then I'm gonna go ahead and go an octave above, add a few notes like this. And something cool with the glide is that if you overlap notes that are very far apart, it can create a really, extreme glide. So we're gonna hear that in a second. And remember, for the glide to activate, you need to overlap the notes. So we're combining glide with last bar variation to, spice up this bass line. So let's zoom out and then check this out here. So as you can see, it adds some cool variation. Let's play it with the drums only so you can hear. And just like that, we can play it all together, and instantly we've added glides plus a last bar variation to take this bass line / 808 to the next level. So the third trick is tension and release. So this bass line right here that I've made, the first 2 bars are going to create the tension and the last 2 bars are going to be the release. So you can, keeping that in mind, you can hear it here. So what you can do with your bass lines, especially in a genre like house or tech house or disco or something like this, you can make the first part of your bass line increase in energy and then kind of let it go. And that creates a really interesting feel and keeps people engaged. Now, trick number 4 is adjusting velocity. So if we go in the piano roll here, you'll see in any piano roll, there will be these kind of like dots, which are velocity, which if it's set to standard will determine how loud the note plays. So for example, if we wanted to create some contrast and make these higher notes play softer, we could select them and move down the velocity. So that creates a more human feel, and you can really go granular and customize the velocity of each note to your taste. Now, trick number 5 is using compression and sidechain compression. So as you can hear, the bass here is conflicting with the kick. So we're gonna want it to, when the kick hits, we're gonna want this bass to duck so that it leaves space for the kick and then comes back when the kick is not hitting. So what you're gonna wanna do is create a separate track, make sure it's muted. And what you wanna do is take your kick. If it's in a loop, you can take it out like this. Or if it's not, you can just paste it like that. And I like to fade it so that it's very tight, so it only ducks on that beginning part. And then we're just gonna copy paste this on every beat, so it goes all the way through. And if we solo this, it's gonna sound like this. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna place a compressor on our bass channel. So I have this preset called Good Sidechain. You can copy these settings. One of my mentors gave it to me and it just works very well, these exact settings. But what you want to do is put the compressor on the bass line and select the sidechain option. And for the input, I like to label the track SC for sidechain so I know what it is. And I also like to turn the color to like gray so that I know it's not an active track. And on the sidechain, all you got to do is select SC, and then you can, I like to keep the ratio on 2, and you can mess around with the attack release, but these settings work well for me. And then the threshold and ratio are gonna determine how extreme the ducking is. So let's check it out. So as you can see, that's pretty extreme. We want it a little bit less. So I'm gonna put the ratio to like 1.3. And now it's gonna sound a lot more cohesive. And on top of sidechain compression, you can use normal compression to even out the level of your bass line throughout and make it flow more smoothly. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm gonna go ahead, get another compressor, put it here. And for this one, you don't want to enable the sidechain setting. So what we're gonna do is solo the bass here. And I like to go to this view so I can see the threshold clearly. And I like to put the ratio between 2 and 4. The ratio is what's gonna determine how strong the compression is. So, between 2 and 4 is good. 4 if you want stronger, 2 if you want lighter. And we're gonna turn off this EQ setting, and then we're just gonna bring down the threshold until you can see some gain reduction. And what gain reduction means is the amount of volume / gain the compressor is reducing by doing the compression. And what you want to do to make up for that loss of gain is adjust the output gain to the same amount. So if your gain reduction there is 2.7, let's call it 3 negative, then you want to put the output to +3. So the level inside and outside the compressor is relatively the same. And the next parameters you have are the attack and release. If you have a punchy bass, then you want a longer attack, which means something like 30 milliseconds. If you have a smooth bass or you're making a slower genre, you're gonna want a faster attack, something maybe 2 or 3 milliseconds. And the release is the opposite. If you have a punchy bass, you want a short release. So let me explain what the attack and release actually do. So the attack determines at what point the compression kicks in. So if the attack is long, it's going to allow the punch of the sound to go through, and then it's going to compress it afterwards. So that's why it works well to have a long attack on a punchy bass. And the release is how fast the compression stops acting after it is activated. So if the release is short, it's going to do compression and deactivate very quickly so that the sound remains punchy. If it's long, it's kind of going to drag along. So for this bass, I would say it's kind of in the middle between punchy and long, actually, because of the tension and release. So we're going to go medium with both settings. We're going to do a 10 millisecond attack and a 30 millisecond release. If you wanted a long release, it would be something like 100 or 150, but I don't recommend going that much for bass. Pretty much between 30 and 100 is good, depending on if you want it punchy or longer. This is a subtle effect, but it does even out the volume of the notes, because especially if you're using bass notes with multiple octaves, it can tend to fluctuate a lot. So adding a compressor can even that out and make your bass line flow more smoothly. Now, trick number 6 is using EQ in a specific way. So let's move on to a different track here. All right, cool. So let's go to the bass, and how I like to use EQ. Let me remove this. For bass, I like to boost 100 hertz for, that real power of the bass. That helps it come through. So if you go to any EQ, choose the bell setting, the Q determines, how wide the bell curve is. You want to go kind of like pretty specific on 100 hertz. And then I like to boost around between 1 and 3 decibels, depending on how much power I want to add. Be careful with going too much because you can cause clipping. So just be wary of that. But here we can boost the power by adding some 100. So actually here you can see what I was talking about before, where the volume fluctuates a lot between these higher octave notes and the lower ones. So we're gonna fix this using saturation, but you could also fix it using compression. But back to EQ, there's a couple other things you can do as well. If you want to boost the harmonics of the sound, you can go to around 200. But what this does is increases the body of the bass, and especially the frequencies that can come through on phone speakers are around 200 in the bass. So it's always good to test your music on phone speakers as well, because a lot of people are listening on phones these days, and if they can't hear your bass on the phone, it's a little bit it's not very good. So what you can do, if that's the case, is boost a little bit of 200. It'll help those harmonics that the phone can actually produce come through. So we can boost that as well by, around 3 dB. And you can go a little bit wider on the Q on this because you want it to cover that whole range of frequencies that come through on smaller speakers. So that's EQ, which was trick number 6, and trick number 7 is saturation. Now, this is one of the most effective things you can do on bass to really make them hit hard. And for this, all you need to do is put your favorite saturator and increase the drive or whatever setting it has. I'm using the stock plugins here so that you can follow along. Every DAW has a default saturator. So you can go pretty aggressive with this. I'll start at 10. So let's go to here, turn it off, turn it on. So as you can see, it also makes it a lot louder. So similar to the compression where you want to kind of even out the gain using the output, Over here, it's gonna increase the gain, not decrease it. So if your saturation has an output knob, you can decrease it by amount that makes it relatively even. And for this specific bass, we can go pretty hard with the saturation because it's a kind of a weak sound to begin with. So let's decrease the output more, increase the drive. So as you can see, it kind of flatlines it. Everything is the same level, which is actually good because before it was fluctuating way too much. The higher octave notes were not having enough sub, but now with these this EQ and saturation, we've made it into a nice, powerful bass. All right, so trick number 8, we're gonna do on this techno track I put together, and that's automation. So let's hear this. All right, so as you can see, the bassline notes are fantastic. It's an amazing bassline, but it's missing kind of a little bit of spice and variation. It's too predictable. So another thing you can do to get rid of predictability and add interest is automation. So there's various parameters you can automate. For this, we're gonna do the filter cutoff. So within the synth that's producing the bass, you can click on a certain parameter and then automate it, which means you're gonna change the setting throughout when it's playing. So for example, over here, if you see this cutoff lane, if we increase it, as it's playing, it's gonna open up the filter and add back those high frequencies. So we'll solo the bass. And I like to do this kind of automation on the 4th bar of the sequence because then it increases the tension and then goes back to how it was. So let's play it now that we've added the automation. All right, way better. Trick number 9 is using creative effects on your bass. So we're gonna stay with this track and we're gonna add some creative effects to it to make it more unique. So as you can see, I've already added the saturator, EQ, and compression that we talked about before. I've already sidechained it as we went through before. Now it's time to get a little bit more creative. So what you can do is add stuff like phasers, flangers, even some reverb or something like that. So for this, I'm gonna use one of our other plugins, Sound Doctor. So I could add something like a chorus to make it wide. So that kind of adds a different vibe, and you can especially combine these creative effects with automation. So I could mix in the chorus over time or at a certain point to make it interesting. And then you got stuff like flangers as well. So as you can see, like combining flanger with cutoff, chorus, creative effects, you can really make your basses stand out. Now you can use any effects plugins that you want. There's also, phasers, flangers inside your DAW, but this was just very easy for me to show you quickly. That's trick number 9, to use creative effects to give your basses a more unique sound. All right, so those are the 9 tricks that we did. The first one being the glide, which we added to this 808, as well as number 2, the last bar variation, which we added here. Then tension and release, which was present on this bass line. Then the 4th being adjusting velocity to change the volumes of certain notes. Next, we had trick number 5, which was sidechaining as well as normal compression. Trick number 6 we did on this track here with the EQ, boosting 100 Hertz for extra power and boosting around 200 for extra harmonics to come through on phone speakers, especially laptop speakers. Trick number 7, saturation, we also used on this to add a lot more power and also even out the level of the notes. Trick number 8 was automation, which we used on the filter cutoff. And trick number 9 was adding creative effects to make your basses sound unique. And something that puts this all together is the brand new upcoming Unison Bass Dragon, which isn't released yet, but I'm gonna give you a quick sneak peek of it right here. We've been working on the Unison Bass Dragon for the last 15 months. Obviously, we work on many plugins at the same time, but the time we started this was 15 months ago. For the last 6 months, our full team of sound designers, of plugin developers, of AI and machine learning experts, music theory experts and our creative director and animators have been working for the last 6 months full time, making this plugin for you. And I'm extremely happy with the way it turned out. And you're gonna see how cool it is right now as well as in the next video where I'm gonna do the full walkthrough. But we've developed AI chord progression detection. So that's one thing I'm gonna show you right now. So we have this house beat here. So I have the MIDI from those chords here. I'm gonna drag it in and it's gonna detect the exact chords that you dragged in. Then all you gotta do is select your genre from these 30 genres, press generate, and it's gonna create a bass line following those exact root notes and matching the progression perfectly. So let's see what it gave us here. And that was just with one click, and you can do many other things such as regenerating a certain section by doing this. You can add or remove notes using the piano roll. You got all these functions on the piano roll. And one of the coolest things is it has a built-in synth. So you can see we have all these presets for you divided into 808s, acoustic basses, electronic basses. You can save your own presets. You can drag and drop the MIDI out of it, the audio out of it, and it has built-in effects and tons more stuff, which I'm going to show you in full in the next video. But let's also try it out on a more hip-hop track, because I know a lot of our customers make hip-hop. So let's go here. So we have this beat with no bass line. Now you can make your own chord progression like this. You can choose different chords. It'll highlight the ones that are correct. You can randomize different chord progressions from the existing ones, or you can use the AI chord progression detection to instantly get the exact chords that you're working with. Press generate and see what it comes up with. So as you can see, it followed the chord progression perfectly. It's got some glide in there and many other things, which I'm gonna reveal in the next video. All right, so I hope you found these 9 tricks helpful, adding variation, using glides, EQing certain frequencies, saturation, automation, etc. And if you can do me one favor, implement at least one of these tricks into your music and let me know how it goes, because I'm super excited for the difference and the improvement it's gonna make to your bass lines in 808s. As you saw near the end of the video, I showed you a sneak peek of the Unison Bass Dragon. We didn't go too much in detail, but that's what the next video is for. But we've been working on the Unison Bass Dragon for the last 15 months. And obviously we work on multiple plugins at the same time, but the time we started it was 15 months ago, and the last 6 months have been absolutely pedal to the metal full time, because I like to work fast. We have a lot of ideas and we really needed to get this one out there. So man, the features we pulled off are really next level compared to anything we've done previously. We developed some AI, we advanced our machine learning, and we came up with much better algorithms, and we even designed a synth from scratch to include inside, as well as including our top effects. But anyways, more details to come in the next video where I'll show you and walk you through all the features and let you know how you can get it. But for now, if you're at least a little bit interested in the Unison Bass Dragon, you can click the button below to sign up for early access so you can be notified before anyone else when it's released. So you can check out the next video and see exactly how it works for yourself. But with that said, this has been Seb from Unison. If you have any questions about either the Unison Bass Dragon or specifically those 9 tips that I shared with you, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll be checking over the next week and answering all the questions myself. So yeah, with that said, hope this video is helpful. I'm super excited to share the Unison Bass Dragon with you very soon. You can get early access by clicking the button below and signing up on the next page. And happy producing and cheers.